So we're starting this week at the Corral because we're going to have a shootout between these two vintage lenses. First, the Minolta Rokkor 55mm f1.7 against the Canon 50mm f1.4 SSC lens. Let's see how they perform.
You look at me like I'm crazy when I shut my feelings out. You look at me like I'm different, still you stay cause you feel something real. Get so lost in my moments, doesn't mean I don't need you. I fell in love with your colors, they kinda tell me what I'm thinking.
I expect some difficulties and challenges with the light today, but that's kind of in the game plan of trying out these two lenses. What I'm really curious about doing these with close-up photography and macro style work, what are we ending up with as far as the bokeh, as far as the background blur? Are we buttery? Are we smooth? Are we nervous? Are we jittery? What's actually going on? So we're going to look at that together. We're going to see how these two lenses perform in this specific circumstance.
There's something different about the way we are.
So yes, Jim, why aren't you doing more of a scientific test? Why aren't you doing charts and lines or brick walls or something with this? And who wants to know about vintage lenses anyway? Well, you know what? I'm pretty vintage, so I want to know about the vintage lenses. But as far as the scientific tests, well, let me just tell you a little story. Let's go down this trail here. Let me tell you a little story. Back when I was in high school, I was in the 1970s, a friend of mine and I were really into audio equipment, stereo equipment, and we would read all the technical information we could on these things, and we would save up our money, and we actually bought ourselves some pretty good stereo equipment. Now, one thing I would do with mine is I'd put on my headphones and I would listen to music. And I really like Steely Dan, Queen, and some other artists as well. And so that's what I would do. And I would just listen and listen to the clarity of the music. My friend, what he would do is he had test records that had specific tones and beeps and different things that would go on. So he would listen to these and be able to tell me, he says, Jim, this one new needle I got or cartridge I got it reproduces these sounds perfectly, but it's not music that he's listening to. So to me, the tests that show the charts and all the lines or the brick walls or whatever people are doing as far as doing these lens tests, yeah, they show you some information about the lens, they show you where it's blurry, but what does it look like in the real world? What does it really look like in a real use? And that's what we're going to work with in the specific parameters of extension tubes and macro photography. Okay, we found our first subject, and that's the stump that's right in front of us. And it's far enough away that I won't need extension tubes. We're going to start out with a Minolta Rokkor lens. The reason is it's a 55mm, so it's going to have a little further reach than that Canon 50. So I want to make sure that I'm framed up where I want to be with this Minolta lens, the longer lens, so that we can compare the background bokeh between these two. So in here you can see a little more how we're set up to look at this stump that's right over here in front of us. I got the camera set up, removed the extension from the tripod so I can get a little lower, and I've got the legs spread out a little bit or splayed out a little bit so that we can get as low as we need to be to the ground. Now it's kind of a challenge, the sun's going in and out, but that's okay. Again, what I'm after is some specular highlights in that background so we can see what this lens looks like. Now let's try to get focused in on this stump right here. Now one thing I'm doing is I'm shooting at the widest aperture the lens has. With this Minolta lens, it's f1.7, and again, because I'm trying to maximize that blur in the background, I want to see as much of the effect of what this lens has, what it really looks like, as possible. So of course the vintage lens is a manual focus lens, so we have to do it that way. Now I personally, it may be due to my age, I don't prefer a lot of the modern focusing methods, the focus peaking, and the different things that are built into cameras. I need to focus organically, so I have all those things turned off. But what my Fujifilm camera does have is it has a zoom in feature. So I press that and I can zoom in a little closer, and I check both the screen on the back of the camera and the EVF to see how close I focus, to see if I've got it accurate. But again, these vintage lenses tend to be a little bit softer than a modern lens, so sometimes it's a little difficult, and that may be where the focus peaking has its issues. Well, I've got a lot more sun in the background that I want for any kind of a usable or artistic image, but one thing that the sun does do is it really blows out the specular highlights and may kind of point out some of the differences between these two lenses. So we're going to go ahead and do some shots. I'm going to get one with the Minolta, and then we'll switch out to the Canon.
You look at me like I'm crazy when I shut my feelings out. You look at me like I'm different, still you stay cause you feel something real. Get so lost in my moments, doesn't mean I don't need you.
So now I've got the Canon lens on the Fujifilm camera. Let's take a shot or two this way.
There's something different about us, and the reason why we stay. We fly around like paper planes, they never know where we will fall. Nobody can see us, still they wanna tear us apart. There's something different about the way we are.
Well, I still haven't found the macro shot that I was hoping to get, but I did find this guy right here, and I just love the light. It's kind of back and side lit a little bit. It kind of has a nice three-dimensional pop. So again, we're going to try out the Canon 50 and the Minolta 55, and we'll see which one we like better. Well, I seem to be having lighting bad luck today. The sun totally changed how it was popping through the clouds in the time that it took me to get this all shot set up. So we'll see. We'll go ahead and fire off a couple and we'll see what you think.
Sharing stories that we never had, yeah, none is real. I think we're searching for reasons.
Now I have switched to the Minolta lens. It puts us in a little bit tighter, but we'll be able to compare the two.
We fly around like paper planes, they never know where we will fall. Nobody can see us, still they wanna tear us apart. There's something different about the way we are. There's something different about us.
One of my favorite things to photograph when I'm here is mushrooms. They always seem to be plentiful here at the Nature Center, but today, of course, when I brought you with me, I haven't seen one. A little bit ago, I found a subject that I thought would work perfect. It was a small plant coming up, and the foliage was about perfect in the background, and that was going to be great. I got my extension tube tripod set up. Wind came up pretty strong, no way I could hold a focus. But I want to let you know, one of the great things about mushrooms is they don't sway in the wind. But one of the worst things about mushrooms is they're right on the ground. So I found my guys right here exactly the type of thing I was looking for. I got a couple different things. I can't get the tripod here, so I'm all handheld now. I got a weed in my ear. I have the 10mm Mikey extension tube, and right now I've got the Minolta Rokkor lens on. These will be the first shots I'm taking. We're wide open at f1.7, so I got like no margin for my depth of field whatsoever. You know what, this lens is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorites, but it is just so soft. Now we've got the Canon lens on, 1.4, 50mm SSC. Holy smokes, this is hard to focus. You remember I covered this in one of the other videos. Don't try to turn that focus knob, because you're turning the focus knob and you're moving around and the thing you're photographing is moving. It's too many moving parts. Keep it as simple as possible. Set your focus, rock yourself back and forth. One thing, this Canon lens focuses closer than that Minolta. It also has more contrast, as I can see in the viewfinder. Nothing that surprised me yet, but it has a really unusual bokeh in the background, and I'm sure you've noticed that in some of the photographs already, because, well, you get to see the photographs before me. 20th of a second? There's no way. I gotta bump my shutter speed. Bump our shutter speed. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push our ISO up. Might introduce grain, but I'd rather have a little bit of grain than a lot of camera shake. So I'm going to go to f5.6 right now on this Minolta lens, just to give myself a little bit of focus play. A little margin for error on this guy.
Never know where we will fall. Nobody can see us. Still they wanna tear us apart. There's something different.
Here, I got one more tip for you. If you're having real problems focusing, set the camera to motor drive. Get yourself just outside of focus, press the shutter, and float yourself in.
There's something different about us. There's something different about us. We're pouring cup after cup after cup. Yeah, it's just the way we do it. Anything just to block out the real life, real life. Yeah, we're loving the way they think we're so messed up. Even if what we're doing is bad, there's so many emotions. Sharing stories that we never had, yeah, none is real. I think we're certain.
Well, today we started in a corral for a shootout and ended up in a treehouse where we can enjoy the rest of our day. Now, in a future vlog, I'm going to try another lens we're going to have a shootout with, and that's this guy here, a Jupiter 8. And if you notice, it looks pretty odd. And I've actually taken this guy off of a Kiev rangefinder camera. I was able to separate the lens and the helicoid out of the camera itself, mounted it on a photose, however they pronounce it, adapter to the Fuji camera, and have done some still work with this, some close-up work, both macro and other. It's got a little different look. You're gonna have to find it in a future video. Actually, depending on when you watch it, it may be linked right there. So if you like videos and trainings like this, hit that like button, give me a thumbs up, and hit the subscribe button as well, and hit the bell so that you'll be sure to get further notifications. Oh, and by the way, this is what I go through to get these shots for you.
The way we are.
Found a little bit ago what I thought was going to be a great subject for our extension tubes and to try this out, and it was a kind of a branch. One of the things about over. All right, take two. Well, today we started in a corral and ended in a treehouse. Kind of a boyhood dream there, isn't it? A little bit. And no good on this one.